Think about what you drank this morning. Not what you ate, not what medication you took, not what you did after you got dressed. What you drank. In the first 30 minutes after your eyes opened, before the day asked anything of you, before the noise began, what went into your body first? For most people over 60, the honest answer is coffee, maybe tea, maybe nothing at all until they arrived somewhere and grabbed whatever was available. And because nothing hurt this morning, because there was no pain, no obvious signal, no reason to reconsider the routine, they will do exactly the same thing tomorrow, and the morning after that, and the one after that, and their kidneys, two organs they have likely never once thought about specifically, will continue doing what they have been doing in silence. Compensating, straining, losing ground so quietly that no alarm will sound until the loss has become irreversible. That is the conversation I want to have with you today. Not a frightening one, an honest one. Because you deserve honesty about what is happening inside a part of your body that you cannot see, cannot feel in the early stages, and cannot afford to ignore past 60. My name is Dr. Sandrine. I have spent the last 20 years working with adults in the second half of their lives, and one of the most consistent and heartbreaking patterns I have witnessed in that time is this. By the time someone comes to me worried about their kidneys, they have often already lost a portion of kidney function that will not return. Not because they were careless, not because they ignored obvious warning signs, but because the kidneys are among the most silent organs in the human body. They do not warn you with pain. They do not send a clear signal until the damage has already crossed a threshold that matters. And the most common thing I hear from patients in that situation, once we sit down and talk honestly about their daily routine, is some version of this. Nobody ever told me that what I drink in the morning had anything to do with my kidneys. Nobody ever connected those two things for me. That connection is what I am going to make for you today, completely, and with the clinical depth it deserves. Because the morning, those first 30 to 45 minutes before the day fully begins, is not simply the start of your schedule. For your kidneys, it is the most critical window of the entire 24-hour cycle. And what you choose to put into your body during that window either supports those organs or compounds the stress they have already been carrying through the night. Before we talk about what to drink, we need to talk about what the kidneys actually are, because most people hold a remarkably incomplete picture of these organs and what they do. And that incomplete picture is part of why their health is so consistently undervalued until something goes wrong. Imagine a filtration system running continuously, without pause, without rest, every minute of every hour of every day of your life. Not filtering cups of fluid. Not filtering liters. Filtering approximately 200 liters of blood every single day. 200. Your entire blood volume passes through your kidneys dozens of times daily. And with each pass, those organs extract what does not belong. Metabolic waste products that your cells produce as a byproduct of simply functioning. Excess minerals that would accumulate to toxic levels if left unchecked. Medications your body has processed and finished with, uric acid, creatinine, urea. Compounds that, if they were allowed to build up freely, would poison you within days. The kidneys are not passive, they are not background organs. They are among the most metabolically active, continuously working structures in the entire human body, and they do considerably more than filtration. They regulate your blood pressure by controlling fluid volume and producing hormones that signal the arteries to constrict or relax. They signal the bone marrow to produce red blood cells, which is why kidney disease so frequently produces anemia. They activate vitamin D, which means that kidney function is directly linked to bone health, immune function, and muscular strength. These are not secondary roles. They are essential biological functions that continue without interruption, 24 hours a day, for as long as you live. After 60, the kidneys are already working in a more challenging environment than they were at 40. This is not disease. This is the documented universal physiology of aging applied to a specific organ system. The blood vessels inside the kidneys, the microscopic capillaries that thread through each filtering unit, become progressively stiffer with age. The number of functional filtering units, called nephrons, declines across the decades. At birth, each kidney contains roughly 1 million nephrons. By the time you are 70, that number may have declined by 30 to 40% through normal aging alone. The nephrons that remain are working harder to compensate for those that have been lost. And the tubules, the tiny microscopic channels that perform the most detailed filtration work, become less efficient with age, less able to manage concentrated urine without sustaining damage. What all of this means, in practical terms, is that the margin for additional stress on the aging kidney narrows significantly past 60. The same level of chronic dehydration that a 40-year-old kidney handles without lasting consequences can, in a 65 or 70-year-old kidney, accumulate into measurable, progressive damage over months and years. The same inflammatory burden, the same blood glucose fluctuations, the same morning dehydration repeated daily across years, lands differently on an organ that is already working at reduced capacity with a thinning reserve. This is not cause for despair. It is cause for attention, for the kind of deliberate, daily, small-effort attention that actually changes the trajectory. Here is a statistic that I share with every patient over 60 who has never specifically thought about their kidney health, and I want you to sit with it for a moment. Research from large-scale nutritional and health surveys in older adult populations suggests that something close to 40% of adults over 60 meet the clinical definition for some degree of chronic kidney disease. Not severe disease, not end-stage kidney failure, but measurable, documented, progressive reduction in kidney function that qualifies as a chronic condition requiring attention and management, 40%. And of that group, the overwhelming majority, somewhere close to 9 in 10, have no symptoms they could name. No pain, no swelling significant enough to alarm them, no change in their energy or their appetite that they have not already attributed to simply getting older. They feel, as far as they can tell, completely fine. This is the biological reality of kidney disease in older adults, and it is the reason that a conversation about morning drinks, about something as ordinary and unremarkable as what you pour into a glass before your day begins, is actually a conversation about one of the most important things you can do for the health of an organ you are probably not monitoring closely enough. Let me tell you about a patient I will call Bernard, 69 years old. A man who had spent his career as an architect, methodical and precise by professional nature, and who had carried that methodical approach into the way he managed his health. He exercised 3 times a week, a combination of walking and gentle swimming. He monitored his blood pressure faithfully. He had cut back significantly on red meat and processed foods after his doctor mentioned his cholesterol several years earlier. He did not smoke. He drank alcohol rarely and moderately. By any reasonable external measure, Bernard was a man who was taking his health seriously and doing so with consistency. He came to my attention through a routine referral after his annual blood panel showed a creeping rise in his creatinine level. His primary physician, to their credit, caught it early. When I ran a complete kidney function assessment, Bernard's estimated glomerular filtration rate, the clinical measure of how efficiently his kidneys are filtering blood, came back at 57. For a man of 69, a reading above 75 would have been expected. He was already at stage 3 chronic kidney disease, meaning his kidneys were operating at roughly half their ideal capacity, without a single symptom he had ever attributed to his kidneys. I did what I always do with a new patient in Bernard's situation. After reviewing his results and his full medical history, I asked him to describe his daily routine in as much detail as he was willing to share. Not his medications, not his exercise schedule, those were already on the chart. His routine. How he woke up, what he did first, what he consumed in the first hour of the day. And what he described was something I have heard in some variation from patient after patient across my career. He woke up, made a large pot of strong coffee, drank 2 cups while reading the news, and then headed out for his morning walk. He almost never drank plain water in the morning. He found it unappealing before his coffee. Sometimes he would have juice with a late breakfast. On hot days, he might drink more throughout the afternoon. But in the morning, from the moment he woke to well past 10 o'clock, he was consuming almost exclusively coffee, a documented mild diuretic that promotes fluid excretion rather than providing net hydration, on top of a body that had already spent 8 hours without a drop of fluid. Bernard was not making an unusual choice. He was making the same choice that millions of adults over 60 make every single morning. A choice that feels ordinary and harmless because it has never produced an obvious, immediate consequence. But the kidneys do not produce obvious, immediate consequences. They absorb the accumulated effect of daily habits across months and years, quietly, silently, until the accumulation passes a threshold that shows up in blood work, often years after the pattern began. I want to explain specifically why the morning is the most critical window of the day for kidney health, because once you understand this biology, the importance of deliberate morning hydration stops being a wellness suggestion and becomes something much closer to a clinical imperative. While you sleep, your body operates for 7, 8, sometimes 9 hours without receiving any fluid. Your kidneys do not sleep. They continue their filtration work throughout the night, processing waste products, regulating fluid balance, doing the quiet maintenance work that keeps your biology stable. But without incoming fluid to replenish what is lost through breathing, through perspiration, and through the urine your kidneys continue producing, your body enters a state of progressive mild dehydration across those sleeping hours. Blood volume decreases slightly. Blood becomes measurably more viscous. Waste products that would normally be diluted and flushed efficiently begin to concentrate in the bloodstream and in the urine that the kidneys are producing. By the time your alarm goes off, your kidneys are handling blood that is thicker and more concentrated with metabolic waste than it will be at any other point in the day. They are producing urine that is maximally concentrated, a deep yellow, sometimes approaching amber, that reflects the effort they are making to preserve fluid while still clearing waste. This is what physicians and researchers refer to as the morning stress window for renal function. The filtration demand is at its highest relative to the fluid available, the urine is at its most concentrated, and therefore most likely to deposit mineral crystals in the tubules, and the blood flow to the kidney's own tissues is running at the lower end of its daily range. Into this already stressed system, most people over 60 pour coffee, a beverage that contains caffeine, which stimulates the kidneys to excrete more fluid, extending rather than resolving the overnight dehydration. The kidneys, already working harder than they should in that morning window, are now being asked to excrete additional fluid they do not have to spare, while simultaneously managing a concentrated load of overnight waste products. This pattern, repeated every morning, year after year, in an organ system already working at reduced capacity due to age-related changes, is one of the most consistent contributors to progressive kidney function decline that I encounter in clinical practice. Not the only one. Not more damaging than uncontrolled diabetes or chronic high blood pressure, but meaningful, measurable, and almost entirely preventable with a different choice in those first 30 minutes. I want to be very clear about something. I am not asking you to give up coffee. Coffee has documented benefits, including antioxidant properties that may actually support certain aspects of kidney health in moderate consumption. What I am asking is that coffee not be the first thing. That before the coffee, before anything else, your kidneys receive what they need most urgently in that morning window: fluid, rehydration, the physiological equivalent of opening a valve on a system that has been running dry all night. There are 4 specific morning drinks that I recommend with consistent clinical support behind each one. Each works through a distinct biological mechanism. Each addresses a different dimension of kidney health, and each can be prepared in your own kitchen with ingredients available in any grocery store for a cost that is genuinely negligible. Let me walk you through all 4 with the depth each one deserves. The first drink is warm lemon water, not cold, not hot, warm. And the reason for the temperature is not simply comfort or tradition. Warm water is absorbed through the gastric lining more rapidly than cold water, which means rehydration begins sooner. The warm lemon water recommendation comes with a specific biological mechanism that most people have never heard explained, and I want to take the time to explain it properly because understanding the mechanism is what makes the habit sustainable. Lemon juice is one of the richest natural dietary sources of a compound called citrate, not vitamin C, which gets most of the attention in conversations about citrus. Citrate, a small organic molecule that performs a specific, documented, and genuinely important protective function inside your kidney tubules. Here is what that function is. Among the waste products that your kidneys filter from the blood every day are calcium ions and oxalate molecules. Both of these are normal metabolic products. In a well-hydrated system with adequate urinary flow, they pass through the tubules separately, are diluted in the urine, and exit the body without incident. But when urine becomes concentrated, as it does overnight and in chronically underhydrated individuals, calcium and oxalate come into contact with each other at higher concentrations, begin to bind together, and form crystals. Those crystals grow over time into kidney stones. But even before they reach stone size, those microcrystals grind against the inner walls of the tubules, causing microinflammation and, over repeated cycles, cumulative scarring of tissue that does not regenerate. Citrate, introduced into the urine through lemon juice consumption, binds directly to calcium ions. It forms a stable compound with calcium that cannot then bind to oxalate to begin the crystallization process. It is a chemical interruption of the sequence before it starts. And the effect is not theoretical. Research from academic medical centers, as well as clinical trials published in peer-reviewed journals, has confirmed that regular lemon juice consumption meaningfully increases urinary citrate levels and reduces the recurrence of calcium oxalate kidney stones in susceptible individuals. Major kidney health organizations now formally acknowledge lemon water as a preventive strategy for stone-prone patients. The preparation is simple. Take half a fresh lemon, squeeze the juice into a glass of warm water, and drink it before anything else. Before the coffee, before the breakfast, before the supplements. Every morning, without exception. One critical note: do not add sugar. Sugar in this context is not a neutral addition. It raises blood glucose, which increases the urinary concentration of glucose and certain harmful compounds, and it actively increases urinary calcium concentration. Exactly the opposite of what you are trying to achieve. The tartness is the medicine. Accept it or dilute it with more water if needed, but do not sweeten it. The second drink is plain water, and I know that sounds almost insultingly simple. You know about water. Everyone knows about water. So let me tell you not that you should drink water, but specifically why the timing, the volume, and the sequence matter in ways that most people have never considered. After the warm lemon water, drink a full glass of plain water, not sipped slowly over 20 minutes while checking your phone. Drunk, deliberately, before you move on to anything else, a full glass. What happens physiologically in the 20 to 30 minutes that follow is measurable. Blood viscosity begins to decrease. The concentration of waste products in the bloodstream dilutes. The kidney tubules begin receiving more dilute urine to process, reducing the friction against the tubule walls that concentrated urine creates. The glomeruli, the filtration structures that determine your GFR, the key measurement of kidney function, begin working in more favorable fluid conditions. Filtration efficiency improves within the same morning. There is a specific signal I teach my patients to observe because it costs nothing and provides direct feedback about whether their morning hydration is actually reaching their kidneys. The color of the first urine passed after adequate morning hydration. In someone who wakes up and immediately drinks properly, within 20 to 30 minutes, the color of subsequent urine should begin to shift. Over days and weeks of consistent morning hydration, the first morning urine, which will always be somewhat concentrated, will lighten from deep yellow toward a pale straw color. That color shift is not cosmetic. It is your kidneys communicating directly to you that the fluid conditions inside the tubules have improved. Dark amber urine every morning is those same kidneys telling you they are chronically overworked. Pale yellow is them telling you they have what they need to do their job without accumulating damage. After 60, the thirst mechanism becomes less reliable as a guide to hydration needs. Research has documented that older adults consistently underestimate their own dehydration because the sensation of thirst diminishes with age. This means that if you are waiting to drink until you feel thirsty, you are likely already mildly dehydrated when you begin. The morning glass of water, taken before thirst arrives, is a deliberate, preemptive act of kidney protection that your body's own signaling system will not reliably remind you to perform. The third drink is unsweetened green tea, and this is the one that generates the most surprise among my patients when I explain the specific mechanism. Green tea is not simply a pleasant hot beverage with vague health associations. It contains a specific class of antioxidant compounds called catechins, And among these, one in particular, known by its abbreviation EGCG, has been the subject of a growing body of research specifically examining its effects on kidney tubule health and kidney stone prevention. What EGCG does inside the kidney is something no other common dietary compound replicates in quite the same way. It interferes with the very first step in the crystal formation process, the step that researchers call nucleation. Before calcium and oxalate can form the larger crystalline structures that become kidney stones, they must first come together in a specific initial configuration that allows the crystal lattice to begin growing. EGCG appears to disrupt this initial assembly process, and beyond that, it appears to prevent the crystals that do form from adhering to the inner walls of the kidney tubules. That adhesion step, the moment a crystal sticks to the tubule wall rather than passing through in the urine, is the step that causes the tissue damage and scarring that is associated with long-term kidney function decline. Beyond its effects on crystal formation, green tea's anti-inflammatory properties address a dimension of kidney aging that deserves its own attention. Chronic low-grade inflammation is one of the primary accelerants of kidney function decline in older adults. It is not the dramatic inflammation of infection or acute injury. It is the persistent, diffuse, cellular-level inflammation that accumulates with age, with metabolic stress, with the immune system's declining precision, and that quietly damages the delicate structures of the kidney over years without producing a symptom that can be named or pointed to. The catechins in green tea, and EGCG in particular, have measurable anti-inflammatory effects at the cellular level, and the research associating regular green tea consumption with better kidney function outcomes in middle-aged and older adults reflects this mechanism. The preparation requires one specific note that determines whether the catechin content of your tea is actually being preserved or destroyed. Do not brew green tea in boiling water. The temperature of boiling water, 100 degrees Celsius, significantly degrades EGCG. The optimal brewing temperature is around 75 to 80 degrees, which is hot water that has been allowed to rest for 2 to 3 minutes after boiling. 1 cup per day is the dose that the available research supports as beneficial. 2 cups is acceptable. Beyond that, particularly in older adults with any degree of established kidney compromise, the cumulative caffeine load begins to offset the benefit. This is not a drink to consume in quantity. It is a drink to consume with precision. And please do not purchase bottled green tea drinks from a supermarket shelf as a substitute. These products almost universally contain added sugar, which counteracts the kidney protective benefits, and they undergo processing that significantly reduces their catechin content. You need brewed green tea from actual leaves or a whole leaf bag, prepared at the right temperature. That is where the medicine lives. The 4th drink is diluted, unsweetened cranberry juice, and I want to address this one with particular care because cranberry has a reputation in popular health culture that is both partially correct and significantly misunderstood. People associate cranberry with urinary tract health, and that association is not wrong. But the reason behind it is more specific and more interesting than most people realize, and the form in which most people consume cranberry has nothing to do with the form that actually delivers the benefit. Cranberries contain a specific class of compounds called proanthocyanidins. More precisely, a structural variant called type A proanthocyanidins that is found in cranberries but not in most other fruits. These compounds do something structurally unique in the urinary tract. They do not kill bacteria. They do not function as an antibiotic. Instead, they alter the surface properties of the cells lining the urinary tract in a way that makes those surfaces less adhesive to the bacteria most commonly responsible for urinary tract infections. The primary culprit in most urinary infections is a strain of bacteria that has evolved specific molecular hooks designed to grip the surface of urinary tract cells. Proanthocyanidins appear to interfere with the function of those hooks, making the cell surface too slippery for the bacteria to maintain their grip. The bacteria remain present. They simply cannot establish the foothold they need to begin colonizing the tissue, and without that foothold, the infection does not develop. Why does this matter specifically for kidney health in adults over 60? Because the relationship between urinary tract infections and kidney damage is one of the most consistently underestimated connections in the management of kidney health in older adults. A single urinary tract infection, properly and promptly treated, leaves minimal lasting damage in most cases. But recurrent urinary tract infections, which are significantly more common in older adults due to changes in the urinary tract's own defense mechanisms, and which are more often undertreated or treated late because the symptoms can be atypical in older individuals, produce a pattern of repeated bacterial inflammation in kidney tissue. Each episode of kidney-level infection, called pyelonephritis, causes scarring. That scarring reduces the functional tissue available for filtration. And unlike the kidney's filtered waste, which passes through and is excreted, scar tissue is permanent. It does not resolve. It does not regenerate. It accumulates quietly across years of recurrent infection, reducing kidney function in a way that looks, on a GFR measurement, very much like age-related decline, because the two processes are occurring simultaneously and cannot be easily separated without detailed clinical history. Reducing the frequency of urinary tract infections in an older adult is, quite directly, reducing the rate at which scar tissue accumulates in kidney tissue. And the proanthocyanidins in real cranberry juice are one of the most well-studied natural tools for achieving that reduction. Research reviews examining the evidence on cranberry products and urinary tract infection recurrence have consistently found meaningful reductions in susceptible populations, with older women representing the group with both the highest baseline risk and some of the strongest evidence of benefit. The critical preparation note, and this is where most people go completely wrong, is this. The cranberry products available in most supermarkets are not what you need. Cranberry cocktail, cranberry juice blend, cranberry-flavored drinks, even products labeled as cranberry juice that contain added sweeteners, none of these deliver the proanthocyanidin concentration the research is based on. Many of them contain so little actual cranberry content and so much added sugar that they would, on balance, worsen kidney health by raising blood glucose and increasing urinary calcium concentration, which compounds the very crystallization risk you are trying to reduce. You need pure, unsweetened cranberry juice. It is intensely tart. It is not pleasant to drink in large quantities, and you do not need to drink it in large quantities. 2 ounces of pure, unsweetened cranberry juice, diluted into 6 ounces of water, taken once in the morning, delivers the proanthocyanidin concentration that the research supports as beneficial. That diluted 8-ounce drink is your dose. No more is needed, and the dilution is not a compromise. It is the correct preparation that makes the potassium content manageable and the fluid volume genuinely hydrating. One important clinical note, and I want to be direct about this because it applies to a meaningful proportion of people watching. If you have established kidney disease at a moderate or advanced stage, the potassium content in cranberry juice requires monitoring. Kidneys that are functioning below a certain threshold lose their ability to excrete excess potassium efficiently, and potassium accumulation in the blood can cause serious cardiac effects. If you are already working with a physician who is monitoring your kidney function, please have a conversation about the cranberry juice specifically before adding it to your routine. The other 3 drinks carry no such caution for most people. But this one, in a patient with confirmed and significant kidney compromise, deserves a clinical conversation first. Bernard came back to see me after 8 months of consistent changes to his morning routine. He had committed to all 4 drinks in sequence every morning before his coffee. He had been precise about it, as his professional nature inclined him to be. His creatinine level had stabilized. His GFR, which had been declining on the trajectory his previous readings suggested, had not continued to fall. It remained at 58, 1 point above where we started. That single point may sound unimpressive, but in the context of chronic kidney disease, stabilization is not a small victory. It is the difference between a trajectory that leads, over 5 to 10 years, to dialysis, and a trajectory that allows someone to continue living with functional kidneys. The direction of the line on the graph changes everything. He sat in my office and said something I have thought about many times since. He said, "In all the years I spent managing my health, and I have been genuinely careful, nobody ever asked me about the first 30 minutes of my morning. Nobody ever said that what I drank before my coffee had anything to do with my kidney numbers. He was not angry. He was simply clear about the gap that had existed in his care and grateful that someone had finally filled it. I want to take a moment now to talk about the signals that should never be normalized or dismissed, because kidney disease is silent for so long that when signals do appear, they are often the body's way of communicating that the silence has ended. And those signals deserve to be taken seriously rather than folded into the general background noise of aging. Persistent fatigue that is qualitatively different from ordinary tiredness, a heaviness that does not resolve with sleep, may in some cases reflect the anemia that kidney disease produces when the organs can no longer signal red blood cell production adequately. Swelling in the feet, ankles, or around the eyes, particularly upon waking, can reflect the kidney's declining ability to excrete excess fluid. A change in urine frequency, particularly an increase in nighttime urination that is new and progressive, can reflect the kidney's reduced ability to concentrate urine efficiently and their need to process fluid volume across more frequent cycles. Urine that is persistently foamy or frothy, which reflects protein leaking into the urine, is one of the earliest measurable signs of kidney damage and is a symptom that warrants prompt medical evaluation. Persistent low back pain, not the musculoskeletal ache of sitting too long or lifting awkwardly, but a deep, dull, bilateral heaviness in the flank area, can in some cases reflect kidney-level pathology. And persistent high blood pressure that is difficult to control despite medication may, in some people, reflect the kidney's role in blood pressure regulation being compromised. None of these symptoms, individually, is conclusive. None of them is a diagnosis. But any of them, when new, progressive, or persistent, is a conversation to have with your physician and a reason to request a kidney function test that includes both the GFR estimation and a measurement of protein in the urine. These two values together tell a far more complete story than either alone. And if you are over 60 and have never had both of these values measured in the same panel, that conversation is worth initiating at your next appointment regardless of whether you have symptoms. I want to also speak honestly about the habits that worsen kidney health in ways that are common, underappreciated, and correctable. Because the 4 morning drinks exist in a broader context of daily choices, and understanding what compounds the damage helps you understand what protecting against it actually looks like. Chronic use of non-steroidal anti-inflammatory medications, the class that includes ibuprofen and naproxen, is one of the most common and consequential contributors to kidney damage in older adults. These medications work by blocking a group of chemical signals that are not only involved in inflammation, but are also responsible for maintaining adequate blood flow to the kidney's own filtering structures. When that blood flow is reduced by regular NSAID use, particularly in an older kidney that is already managing with reduced nephron numbers and stiffer vessels, the damage accumulates in ways that the patient almost never connects to the medication, because the medication is taken for an entirely separate complaint, a sore knee, a backache, a headache, and the kidney consequences are silent. I am not saying never take these medications. I am saying be informed about the risk, particularly in a body over 60. When pain management is needed and sustained, it is worth a specific conversation with your physician about which options carry less renal risk. Paracetamol, used at the appropriate dose, is significantly more kidney-friendly than ibuprofen for most people. That substitution made consistently may seem like a small thing. Over years of daily or near-daily use, it is not a small thing. Chronically high blood sugar, whether from diagnosed diabetes or from the undiagnosed prediabetes that affects a very significant proportion of older adults, is the leading cause of kidney disease in the developed world. Glucose at elevated levels damages the delicate filtration membranes of the glomeruli over time, causing a progressive loss of their selectivity. The kidney begins allowing protein to pass into the urine, which it should not, reflecting damage to those membranes. This protein leakage, called proteinuria or albuminuria, is one of the earliest measurable signs of diabetic kidney disease. And it precedes obvious symptoms by years, sometimes decades. If you have any degree of blood sugar dysregulation and you have not had your urine protein measured recently, that measurement is worth requesting. It takes nothing more than a urine sample. And the information it provides about what is happening inside your kidneys right now, at this stage, when intervention is still meaningful, is information that may genuinely change the direction of your trajectory. High blood pressure sustained over years, whether treated or untreated, physically damages the delicate blood vessels that thread through the kidney's filtering units. The constant elevated mechanical force gradually scars those vessels, reducing blood flow to the nephrons, reducing filtration efficiency, and producing a slow but measurable decline in GFR that looks, from the outside, very much like age-related change. Managing blood pressure in older adults, as we discussed in a previous conversation, is a nuanced clinical task that requires individual calibration rather than the simple application of population average targets. But whatever the appropriate target for a given individual, achieving it and maintaining it consistently is one of the most powerful kidney protective things that person can do over the long term. And then there is dehydration. Not the dramatic dehydration of heat stroke or illness, the low-grade, chronic, daily mild dehydration that most older adults live in because their thirst mechanism has become less reliable, because coffee and tea have become their primary morning fluids, and because nobody has ever specifically connected the state of their morning hydration to the state of their kidney tubules. This is the most common and most quietly damaging contributor to kidney function decline in the patients I see over 60 who do not have diabetes or dramatically elevated blood pressure. It is also the most correctable. It requires no prescription, no referral, no diagnostic test to address. It requires a glass of water before the coffee, every morning, deliberately, as an act of care toward organs that are performing an astonishing amount of work on your behalf, in silence, every minute of your life. Let me bring everything together now, because I want you to leave this conversation with absolute clarity about what to do tomorrow morning, not next week. Tomorrow. The 4 morning drinks are these, in order, consumed before your coffee, before your breakfast, before the day makes its first demand. First, the juice of half a fresh lemon squeezed into a glass of warm water. Drunk before anything else. This delivers citrate directly to your kidney tubules in the window when urine is most concentrated and most likely to form the crystals that damage tubule walls. No sugar, every morning. Second, a full glass of plain water, drunk after the lemon water and before anything else. This begins the rehydration process that your kidneys have been waiting for through the night. It thins the blood, dilutes the morning concentration of waste products, and begins lowering the filtration burden on your tubules within 20 to 30 minutes. Watch the color of your urine change over 2 to 3 weeks of consistent practice. That color is your kidneys communicating directly with you about whether they are getting what they need. Third, 1 cup of unsweetened green tea, brewed from real leaves or a whole leaf bag at around 75 to 80 degrees. Not boiling, not bottled, not sweetened. 1 cup, drunk in the morning after your water. The catechins in this tea, particularly EGCG, protect kidney tubule walls from oxidative damage and interfere with the crystal adhesion process that causes the micro-scarring underlying long-term kidney function decline. Fourth, 2 ounces of pure unsweetened cranberry juice diluted into 6 ounces of water, taken once in the morning. This delivers proanthocyanidins to the urinary tract lining, reducing the adhesion of bacteria that cause the recurrent infections that scar kidney tissue over time. If you have established moderate or advanced kidney disease, speak with your physician about this one specifically before adding it. That is the complete morning protocol. 4 drinks, 30 to 45 minutes, before the coffee. Beginning tomorrow morning. Not as a dramatic intervention, as a daily act of consistent, deliberate care toward organs that cannot ask you for it but need it every single morning. Bernard is still my patient. His kidney function has not deteriorated since we made those changes 2 years ago. He walks in the morning, as he always did. He has his coffee. He manages his blood pressure carefully. He does all the things he was already doing well. But now he begins every morning differently. He begins it the way his kidneys need him to. With what they need, in the order they need it, in the window when it matters most. He told me recently that the change felt small at first, that the first week felt like going through a routine that he was not sure would matter. And then his urine began to lighten. And then he noticed he felt a little clearer in the mornings. And then his blood work came back stable for the first time in 3 years. And he understood with the precision that his professional mind required that the small thing and the important thing can be the same thing. that medicine does not always announce itself with drama and difficulty. Sometimes it is a glass of warm water with a squeezed lemon and 20 extra minutes before the coffee. Your kidneys are working for you right now. They are filtering, regulating, signaling, protecting, without complaint, without rest, without asking you for anything in return. Give them what they need in the morning when they need it most. That is not a sacrifice. That is a conversation between you and the biology that has been carrying you faithfully through every day of your life. It deserves to be a kind one.